Michaela Cole is a writer who won an Emmy this weekend for her show on HBO called I May Destroy You. And in her acceptance speech, she said, I'm going to read it. In a world that entices us to browse through the lives of others to help us better determine how we feel about ourselves, and to in turn feel the need to be constantly visible, for visibility these days seems to somehow equate to success. Do not be afraid to disappear from it, from us, for a while, and see what comes to you in the silence. And that felt pointed at me because I feel like I'm going through this silent stage of my storytelling life. And it's uncomfortable. It's really not easy. So I taught a class today and it went great. And I thought it was going to go great. I'm kind of in a place where I feel like I've been doing this for 2.5 years. I kind of have a sense of what's going on and how things are going to flow. And I know I'm moving on to another career or job later on. And so I'm just in a space. And so in a way, much of the anxiety or fear around teaching, which I had a good amount of, has quieted. And it's really changed the dynamic for me. I mean, yeah, it's more comfortable, which is nice. But also now I'm kind of thinking about, well, what does teaching mean to me? See, so for me, it's interesting. I don't even believe in the concept of being a writing teacher. I mean, yeah, you can teach grammar, you can teach punctuation, you can teach or talk about the philosophies of old writers and how they may or may not apply to you. But at the end of the day, it's just you and your story. Really, it's just yourself and your story. And so what I feel like I've been doing more and more lately is getting my students to trust themselves, to trust that their instincts and their responses to stories and storytelling is valuable, even if it's not in the strictest sense correct, whatever that may be, but just being able to trust yourself because that's all you have. I mean, yeah, you may have a pen, a voice, a microphone, a piece of paper, but all of that is subject to the self, to your brightness, your darkness, your pain, your joys, your sadness, your happiness. And you have to live with that and kind of understand it. And I think you do find a better sense of the texture of that and the shape of that in the silence. And I think I'm going through that now and I'm thinking about how am I going to get my students to be able to trust the silence when I am actually at the moment kind of struggling with it. Like it's nice, but it's scary at the same time. It reminds me of this essay I read about this room. I think it's considered one of, if not the quietest room in the world. It's so quiet, I think the only thing you might be able to hear is the blood rushing in your ears. People can't stand being in this room for more than, say, a minute. It's almost like sound, noise, activity, this really integral, important part of our life has been amputated. And that's kind of hard to take. What was that quote? It's like all a man's troubles come from the inability to sit quietly alone in a room with just their thoughts, to be able to trust the silence. I kind of get that. I mean, a few months ago, I felt like my life was very noisy with school in full gear, work, freelance gigs adding stress because that's just months and months of research and writing and not getting paid for any of it. And you may not get paid until the piece you write publishes, and might not get published until months after you've done all that research and writing. And since then, I've been paid for the freelance jobs. I'm in the last semester of school. I've pretty much finished my thesis. I have one class, which isn't showing me anything I haven't seen before. It's comfortable. And so now I'm sitting with this silence. I feel like my pen is still kind of cooling off after doing so much writing. And it's just me and myself. And it's kind of, well, it's complicated because there's a mourning process to having finished all that. There's this actor, Steve Buscemi, and he was saying in this podcast about how he learned early on in his career that sadness is going to be a part of it all the time because he would get sad after he finished another movie or another show, partly because he was getting to know the cast and crew, but also because his creative process, this very living and vibrant thing, has come to an end, has in a way died. And what can you do with that except sit with it? Yeah. So silence feels like this integral part of storytelling. I was cooking today, and I was listening to the way the pan kept banging against the stove, and then I made a mess. And so I was listening to the way the broom was brushing against the floor, and there's this floorboard, and I was listening to the way it would creak if I stepped on it in a certain way. And I wasn't saying a word. Maybe I could hear myself breathing, but I felt surrounded by so much. It's kind of ironic, the disquieting nature of being silent. Sometimes I'm silent because I don't have anything to say. Sometimes I'm silent because I don't have anything positive to say. Sometimes I'm silent because I think it's just important to listen to the world around me. It seems like that's a really important part of storytelling, not just understanding stories, but also being a part of somebody else's storytelling process. Yeah. Things do come to you in the silence. Good things, bad things. Some of the things have scared me. Some of them have given me hope. Some of them have challenged me for new directions. Some of them have been opportunities, honestly. I feel like I've been stagnant in a certain way, but yet there's been new chances and new opportunities. It's like this book, The Tao of Pooh. And Winnie the Pooh, I forget, he couldn't find something. He was looking and looking and looking, and he just couldn't find it. So he stopped looking. He said, well, since I haven't been able to find it while I'm looking, maybe I'll find it when I'm not looking. Maybe I'll find it in the silence.